and welcome to Flowride's playlist. This is a new show I'm doing with Steel City guitarist Mike Floros. Welcome to the show, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Now, could you share with the people listening to this, Mike? You told me the story that you got the nickname of which is Flowride, which I understand has something to do with Foghat, which is why we're doing the show on Foghat today. But could you tell that story to the people listening to this?
Sure, yeah. When I was a little kid growing up in Florida, it was just, I moved to Florida when I was, I think, right before first grade. And, Foghat came out with, they had a couple of albums out already. And then it must have been like second or third grade, I think, when Fool for the City came out. And all the little kids were already calling me Flowride. And then,
oh, wow.
it was like Flowride. And then, one of them, I don't know who, just, came up with Flowride, take it easy. And, because it just is what it is. I thought the name had escaped me for a while, and then when I moved back to Ohio, one of my good friends, one of the Talley brothers, I think, started calling me Flowride again. So, or it might have even been somebody when I went to middle school, but it was either one of my middle school or high school friends started calling me Flowride again. And it was a name that just never escaped me, and I just kind of adopted it, I guess, as a result.
That's kind of cool, and I love the way you kind of went with it and made it work, because what's funny is even like when I type your name, I'm, writing something about you on Facebook or something, like I was writing something about Flowride the other day, and your name automatically comes up. It's kind of cool. So when people automatically who know you, they kind of associate you with that.
Yeah, well, I think the cool thing is they say you should never create your own nickname.
Yeah.
And not only was it given to me once, it was given to me twice.
There you go.
With that in mind, I believe it was probably meant to be.
Yeah, it's interesting how stuff like that kind of sticks because, I was interviewing this guy the other day. He's a musician from Germany. In fact, he was calling me from Germany. He's a bass player for this band, Shameless, and they got different, like Stevie Rochelle and different singers coming in and playing on his songs. But he was telling me years ago when he started his band, he had he'd been friends with Eric Singer, and Eric Singer gave him the nickname of Skunk because he had all these different like color streaks in his hair, and he just started calling him Skunk. And he said 30 years later, people are still calling me that.
Yeah, that's there you go. Exactly. It's kind of cool when somebody gives you your nickname and it sticks, so to speak.
Yeah, and like you were kind of just sharing that the nickname really has nothing to do with not too much to do with Foghat, but more where you're from. So that's kind of interesting. But like most people, when you hear the name Foghat, a couple songs immediately come to mind. Slow Ride is the obvious one. I Just Want to Make Love to You. Now, what I enjoyed about the list that we're going to be discussing today that you created, Mike, is the whole idea behind this show is not only did I want you to kind of shine a light on tunes that you're really kind of think people should check out, but me being the Foghat fan that I am, there's one or two songs on here that I'd never heard before, and listening to them and prepping for this today, I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool tune, and that's what I hope we do with this, so I guess we'll go right down the list. Now number one on your list was I Just Want to Make Love to You. So let's start with you kind of, what's it about that song that you felt important to include on this, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it.
Well, quite honestly, that was, as a little kid, I may have heard that song before, but the first recollection of any Foghat song that I'd ever heard was, of course, Slow Ride.
Yeah.
And, I was very fortunate to grow up in a not necessarily a musical family in regard to, musicians and family, although my father was a jazz musician. I never really lived with him.
Yeah.
We had, my cousins were all very much into, the harder rock and roll, and I guess Foghat, even though more or less like a Boogeyman, could have been considered hard rock back in the 70s. So I was able to listen to a lot of bands like Foghat and Bad Company, Queen, and of course Kiss, and that more or less formed, was the groundwork for, my musical taste pretty much for the rest of my life. And once I heard Foghat and Fool for the City, which is really probably my true introduction to the band.
Yeah.
I went back and I listened to other things, as I aged. I don't think, I Just Want to Make Love to You was the first song that I listened to, but I remember hearing it on Foghat Live and just like being like, wow, this is a really cool
That's your
tune.
reference, yeah, for that, yeah.
And of course, it's an old blues tune. And I'm trying the name of the man they took it from. That they.
I can give you that name, and here's the thing. And here's
I think it's
Willie Dixon.
Yeah, Willie Dixon. That's it. Yeah, I couldn't remember his first name right offhand. That's kind of sad, but yeah. I mean, I think it's just really great. Some of the stuff that they've done, they're kind of like the slide guitar and the boogie action that they got going on in their songs. A lot of that in the pocket playing. It's just something that's probably a little bit different from a lot of the other bands that we're used to growing up.
Oh yeah, and the interesting thing about this song, "I Just Want to Make Love to You," is I remember in the '70s hearing that all over the radio. Of course, it was a big hit for Foghat. So much to the point that guys like you and me, Mike, probably originally thought that was a Foghat tune. And interesting thing is, it was like a big, because in the '70s at that time when this song came out, disco was king, and it was they were playing this like in all the dance clubs and stuff. It was like a big disco hit for them, and it's so much. They so much put the Foghat stamp on this song that you and me and many other people think of this as a Foghat song, even though, like you said, it's a Willie Dixon tune. In fact, I interviewed Roger Earl, the sole original member, the drummer in the band, and he was telling me, this was our like kind of tribute to the blues. We were a real big Willie Dixon fan, but I was telling him, Roger, you guys did such a great job of doing that song that I really thought it was a Foghat tune.
Yeah. Those guys are great in concert, by the way.
Oh yeah, and people joke about Foghat. They played the latest, State Fair or whatever. But I tell you, you got to respect the guys. Roger Earl's like I said, he's the only remaining left from original lineup, and yet he's still doing it. And the guys that are in the band now, they're kind of carrying the torch, if you will. But it is great stuff.
Oh, they've got good players. They got Brian Bassett, I think, is playing the slide right now. Charlie Hoon. Or I don't know.
Yeah, that's it, Charlie Hoon. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. I mean, if there's one guy that could probably just replicate Lonesome Dave, it's him. He does a killer job.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say in regard to my foray into Foghat concertdom, I think you're an LA guy as well.
Yeah.
You'll understand because you've been to the Canyon Club several times, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
So here I am, front row center at a Foghat concert, and I am just pumped because I'm dying to see these guys, and I get up and I'm, like I said, front row. So you figure everybody's gonna stand up, right? I'm the only guy standing up at the Foghat concert. And then I realize I'm probably one of the younger guys there, and I actually got tapped on the shoulder, and they're like, "Excuse me, sir, you need to sit down so the people behind you can see."
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm at a rock concert in the front row, and I'm being told to sit down." I'm not ripping on Foghat. It was just kind of. I guess it's kind of like a little rip at the LA crowd. I'm like, come on, man.
But that speaks volumes not only to their talent as a band. The fact that you weren't an original. I mean, you weren't a fan from way back when necessarily, but
I was.
Oh yeah, but what I mean is you didn't see them like in their heyday live. I guess what I'm saying, and yet you still have that reaction when you're seeing the band live.
Oh well, they're a great band, dude, and they put on a killer show. Quality musicians. What more can you ask for? I think when people start, I guess before we get to number 2 on the list, one thing that kind of is really a pet peeve for me is when I see a lot of things in a lot of these Facebook groups and whatnot, and you've seen it too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not going to go see that band. It doesn't have the original members. Well, guess what? Band members change, times change, things change, people move on, people pass on for whatever reason. The band's not going to be the same, but the music's still there. The key is to go and enjoy the music while you still can. So it's like if you want to rip on somebody that only has one original member, or you're going to see Foreigner, which sometimes has no original members playing in the lineup, you're still going because that's the music is there. The music transports you to a place and time that nothing else can. Enjoy it because you may not be able to do that tomorrow.
And on that note, it kind of depends on the band, but I do agree with what you're saying. But Foghat, I think, like some bands, like even Queen, what makes it acceptable, I think, is Foghat didn't break up. The guys didn't all hate each other. Roger Earl didn't kick all the other guys out of the band and take over, Foghat. Unfortunately, people pass away in life, and in Foghat's case, it's kind of like carrying the torch, as I said. it's kind of very much like Lynyrd Skynyrd. They only have maybe 2 original members, but the other guys died in the plane crash, or others have died throughout the years. And those songs, like Lynyrd Skynyrd songs, they mean something to people. Very much like that's how Roger and Brian are able to still go out and play all these Queen songs with Adam Lambert, because initially you'd think who the hell's going to replace Freddie Mercury? But again, when you talk about songs like Somebody to Love, Bohemian Rhapsody, those songs mean to people. And if you can get a guy that can sing the stuff decent enough, people still want to hear those songs,
Absolutely.
Okay, and then number two on your list. Another one I've heard before. It's a great rock anthem, great rock and roll tune. Rock and Roll Outlaw. It kind of just says what it is,
Mm-hmm. This song for me, I remember this is probably the first album, like I said, after purchasing, of course, Fool for the City with Roger Earl fishing in New York City on the cover. This is probably the first album that I purchased that I went back and got with my own money.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the record store and seeing, like the nice price on it, which was probably $7.
I remember those stickers. Yeah. Great deal.
So like $4 or $5 at the time, maybe less, because we're talking about when I was a kid.
Yeah, 70s.
And I just remember sitting in my room, on my bed, listening to songs off this album, 8 Days Off the Road, Dreamer, but Rock and Roll Outlaw really just kind of stuck with me, and I think it's because it had like that attitude, like you said, like outlaw and all that stuff, and 6-string and all. You start hearing all that stuff, and it's just like catch words and catchphrases, and it had such a groove to it. I'm like, I love the tune, and it's like when I reach for like Foghat, when I reach for like some Foghat music, that's always one of the songs I love to play. It's not my favorite, but it's probably in the top
it'll rock your world, as they say. But you mentioned Charlie Hoon. I had a chance to interview him not too long ago. A really cool guy. Anybody may not know, before he was ever in Foghat, he used to play in the 70s with Ted Nugent. So
Ted Nugent,
he's quite the accomplished singer. And he was telling me, he goes, when my whole thing when I joined Foghat, he told me is. He goes, I have a huge respect for original Foghat lineup. He goes, I didn't want to come in and change those songs and do them my way. I wanted to kind of, have really respect for what those guys were doing, and I pretty much stay true to the way they did it.
And he does, especially even live. I've actually done like covers of Foghat tunes. I have I was thinking about actually putting it just up on SoundCloud for fun, and singing like "Fool for the City." Lonesome Dave's a hard guy to cover, man. That guy's got a voice that is just unreal. But, Foghat is unique, and they're a hard band to replicate because how many people, have that slide guitar? Not many.
Yeah.
It's a signature of their sound. And, they had the magician of slide, Rod Price, so God bless him.
Oh, yeah. And, Fool for the City, what a great album. That's got so many great tunes. And anybody that's just a casual Foghat fan, that's kind of the album I would point them in the direction. Say, you want to know what Foghat's all about, that's pretty much the album to get. And then you'll have an idea of what those guys do,
I think that was their only album that actually went platinum other than the live one.
Yeah.
And, live when you have 6 songs. Foghat was definitely not afraid to release a tune that had some length to it.
Yeah.
When you look at Slow Ride and you got like 8 minutes and some odd seconds of music, I think it says all you need to know.
And we're going to get to Slow Ride eventually, but that's another song. It's interesting because as we sit here, that song itself is over 50 years old. And this year, 2021, Foghat is celebrating their 50th anniversary as a band, and they just came out with this great new live CD and DVD of it's called 8 Days a Week Live, and it's a CD of a show and a live DVD, and one of the new tracks on there that they do is a cover of Play This Funky Music, which I think Charlie was telling me, if I'm not mistaken, the bass player. Brian Bassett.
I think Brian Bassett was like their guitar player. I think he was in Wild Cherry.
That's what he was telling me. He said he played on the original version, and that's how they got the idea to do that. And that makes that track on that new DVD, it makes it all the worth getting that, just to check that out.
A quick trivia question: who else was in Wild Cherry? I think it was after Play That Funky Music, but Donnie Harris.
Oh, really? Okay, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah. So "Fool for the City" I think is the next song on the.
Yeah, yes, you are. Full for title track, as we were saying, off the probably their one album that really hit it big on the charts, and that's probably the one album everybody knows. "Full for the City." That's a great song. That's one of those songs like "I Just Want to Make Love to You," "Slow Ride." These are the songs that you've no doubt heard on the radio.
That's the meat of the Foghat, of the Foghat sandwich, I guess.
Yeah.
But totally, like I said, I think most people, this was probably, whether they're, my age, which I'm 53,
yeah.
Whether they're, a little kid listening to Foghat or a teenager listening to Foghat, for the most part, I think a lot of people, this is really their introduction to the band. And that's why there's probably so many songs. I probably could have put the whole damn album of "Fool for the City."
Oh yeah, no doubt, yeah.
But that's like everybody's, I think, introduction. That's why that album sticks with so many people. It just had such a, they had so many great songs on there, and that's just, what a way to kick off an album. That tune is just killer.
Yeah. And then
I think it's one of Dave's best vocal performances for sure.
Yeah, and then the next one, I really, this is probably a tune that, I don't know, a lot of people probably aren't as aware of it, but ever since I heard this song, I heard it a while ago, "My Babe," I really love it. Again, it's another great rockin' kind of tune. It's a different kind of tune for Foghat, but one thing I love about it, the lyrics, the words, the whole beat, it just sticks in my head, and once I hear the song, I just start singing along.
Yeah, this is, where they get their nickname, the Boogeyman. It's songs like this. But what I really like about that song, more than just about anything else, is how they just open up with that harmony. I mean, to me, that just it really just kind of grabs you, because you're not expecting that, and here they come, they roll out these harmonies, and then the song just has like that vibe, and it's one of those get up and dance kind of songs, man. There's just no other way to say it.
And then I have two songs that are not on the list that I'd like to kind of get your feedback on. Have you ever heard their cover of a Chuck Berry tune, "Maybelline"? Great tune.
Yeah, it's on the first album.
Yeah, and then I also, they do a great cover of Buddy Holly's "That'll Be the Day." I dare say I like their version even better than Buddy Holly's version.
Well, that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just a band has a take on a song, and they roll it out, and sometimes you just like it a little bit more than than the original. For me, there's a song that Steel City plays live. We play "Mob Rules," and I've caught a lot of shit from a couple of people because we don't play the quote-unquote Black Sabbath version of the song. I actually play a version of the song that's probably a little bit more reminiscent of Jorn Landy.
Okay.
But to me, that his version of the song is something that I absolutely I love and adore. And so that's where and I'm not taking anything away from Ronnie James Dio, because
of course not. He's a king. Yeah.
I just like that version a little better. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And so same thing for you with with Buddy Holly songs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I like Buddy Holly. Don't get me wrong. The original version. I just think maybe for the kind of music I typically listen to, I thought, wow, they put a great spin on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the next one on here is a pretty obvious choice, "Slow Ride." But it's interesting that you put that at number 5 rather than number 1. But again, this is your list, and so that's a great place for that.
The list isn't. I don't know if you noticed, but the list itself, I compiled the list. It's not actually in any particular order.
Okay, yeah.
If there was an order, that song is absolutely, positively, unequivocally number 1.
I hear you.
Everywhere you went,
you heard that
in the 1970s. You heard this song. I would say probably all the way through the 1980s.
Even now, you bring up the name Foghat. That's the first song people mention.
We always joke about that with the song Foghat. It's like, because to me, it's just that song has so much to it. It has all of that killer slide guitar. Just the groove just for that song is just unlike any other song I think I've ever heard in my life. And then of course that little intermission where Dave comes in, he's like, "Oh, come on, baby." That part of the song is, to me, makes the song.
Yeah, another thing that really makes it a standout track to me is a lot of times the drummer doesn't get a lot of attention in a band, but I think that's a really great drum track. Roger Earl really gets to shine on that one.
Oh yeah, he does, absolutely, without a doubt. But you look at that and you just look at the way their rhythm section for that band was just so damn tight. I mean, it was just unreal.
Yeah, and
him and Tony Stevens they were wow.
And like I was telling you, a couple of years back, I got to interview Roger, and one of the main reasons I was interviewing him was because at the time they had a new album come out. It was called The Under the Influence, and they had a new version of Flowride they had just done with the current lineup. And he was telling me, this song is just turning 50 years old. And I loved his attitude about, some bands, like, they'll tell you, I'm so sick of playing that song. But he says, you know what? We love that song just as much as we did 50 years ago, and the fans still love it, so we never get sick of playing it.
Yeah, and I remember, being a little kid when that song would come on the radio. They would actually, right about that intermission time is when it would fade out.
Yeah.
Because they had their radio edit version. And I remember, when I heard it for the first time all the way through it, you're like, oh my gosh. This is just, it's mind-blowing.
And it's interesting
Yeah, and the time changes in the song and everything. It just, these are the types of songs, that not only, it doesn't matter if you're, like I said, I think it was 7 or 8 years old when this album came out. These are the types of songs that are the ones that more or less hammer it into you that you're like, I want to be a musician.
I mean, everybody knows songs like, everybody knows like Flowride, like you're saying. It's one of those things like, even if you're just a casual Kiss fan, I guarantee you, a whole handful of people have heard the song Rock and Roll All Night, I mean, people are going to know that song. I mean, even a casual Kiss fan goes to see a Kiss concert, you expect it, that's one tune you expect to hear,
Oh, yeah. You expect Foghat to close with Flowride.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
And I got to say, Mike, it's interesting the list of songs you did come up with, because a lot of the ones that I'm aware of, I love all these tunes you chose. I mean, one tune I really think is really underrated, that they really doesn't get a lot of the love and attention that I'm glad you include here is Terraplane Blues. I tell you, a great rock and blues tune. First time I ever heard that song, I just felt I've been in love with it ever since.
Oh yeah, just again, I could have included every last song off Fool for the City, man.
Yeah.
I love that album. There are certain albums in your life that you could just, they're your desert island albums, I guess, as they say. Fool for the City's one. News of the World. Kind of strange how all these albums came out right around the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, as we sit here and as we sit here talking about this, like, I've come to realize that 2021, year marks 50th anniversary for a lot of things. Like, I just did show talking about the fact it was the 50th anniversary of Alice Cooper's Love It to Death album. Also, 1971 is the same year that came out with John Lennon came out with Imagine. The Who came out with Who's Next. All of these like just great albums that had great tunes from top to bottom.
Yeah, and it's like, you really want to, if somebody ever says to you, well, what are the elements that I need to create a good rock and roll band? Can you lend me, your ideas as to what albums have some great songwriting, just great, great vibe to them? You look at, things like Fool for the City, because it has songs like Terraplane Blues and Flowride, and, and you look at bands like Boston. All these albums came out around the same time, and you could just more or less henpeck and say, if you could put together elements of Queen, Boston, Kiss, Foghat, Bad Company.
Boston,
You'd come up with one hell of a band.
Yeah,
you'd be able to write some amazing songs.
But I think what made a lot of those bands really authentic, even to this day, is they just went in and they were doing what they do. They didn't have a master plan like these guys. I wanna write a hit album. I want to have a number one hit. They didn't have other people writing their tunes for them,
Well, I think these guys had it. I think that, record companies again had it, a little bit of a different agenda back then as well, because you're talking about a time when, when Foghat was signed, Kiss was signed. They had record labels that actually developed their artists and took time to develop their artists and realized that it might take 2 or 3 albums, much the way in sports it might take 2 or 3 years to groom a quarterback from the starter. These guys these labels were behind them to an extent that bands today don't enjoy that, because quite honestly, record labels don't put any money into you. If you're signing with a record label, for the most part, you're usually just signing a distribution deal. You're probably doing everything in-house and letting them distribute you.
Yeah,
and therein lies the difference. These guys are getting a producer that they want to work with. They're not all. It's not always working out for the best, but they're getting funding. They're being able to get onto a tour. All these different things, and that's why I think these bands were able to do what they wanted to some degree.
Yeah, and now number 7, Driving Wheel, another great kind of rock anthem tune.
Right off a Night Shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of those tunes too that talk about Foghat. You mentioned Driving Wheel, but the diehard Foghat fans are going to know exactly what you're talking about. I mean that's one of those tunes they always include in the live set.
Yeah, they do, and it's one of those songs when you're like when you're at the live show, you're just like you're waiting for I'm trying to remember if they opened with it. I can't recall.
Well, I know on the new CD they did the live CD that I was talking about, they opened with it on that.
Yeah, I believe they did open that when I saw them at the Canyon Club, but it just puts a smile on your face the second you hear it. It's quality tune. Charlie sang it beautifully. I do remember that. So
and now the next one we have at the 8th spot here, Stone Blue. Now I gotta be honest, I'm hearing this with kind of fresh ears. I haven't heard the song before listening to it today, and but I another one of these tunes, just loving it. Like wow, hearing this for I don't know. Again, I don't know how this wasn't all over the radio, but it's a pretty cool tune.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow. See, that's therein lies the beauty of that song to me. And you were asking about a list as like what order would be. Flowride would be number 1 for me. Stone Blue would be number 2.
Yeah.
Stone Blue is one of those songs that growing up, I remember like you're probably gonna laugh at this, but I remember having like one of those portable 8-track players, and actually just whether I was riding my bicycle to baseball practice or just riding around the neighborhood with my friends or whatever. That's one of those 8 tracks that we just stick it on the handlebars, pop that thing in, and oh my gosh, dude, that's one of my favorite Foghat tunes, if not one of my favorite songs of all time. It's actually a song I'd love to do live. I just don't think I'd ever be able to do it enough justice to play it. Yeah. And then next tune is Third Time Lucky. Again, kind of hearing this one for the first time, but I liked it for the fact that it's kind of a different tune. Yeah, that's when I think it was not very shortly after that. I think that Price decided he wanted to leave because I think he was looking. They were going in a little bit of a different musical direction than what he was looking, what he was into, from what I can remember. But and I could be wrong on that. Again, I'm not a Foghat historian. I just happen to like a lot of the music, but. That's a song that was a big song for them. I remember being a little kid in Florida, and that came out and was on like a lot of the different local FM stations down there in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
I think what's it off of? Boogie Motel, I think is the name of the album.
I think so. That's what I. But again, it's kind of interesting because hearing it for the first time myself, that is kind of a reaction I had. Wow, how is this not a bigger hit, or how is it that I wasn't aware of this song? Because to me, it's really what I would show somebody. That's what great songwriting is. That right there. Because again, it wasn't your typical Foghat kind of rockin' tune. It was a little different sounding. It was a little bit of a slower song. But I mean, it's like
foray into the ballads.
That's almost what I was going to say. It's like I could see if they maybe released it in the '80s when those power ballads were real big. They might have had a hit with it. Maybe it's a case of like wrong time. I don't know, wrong era. But again, just hearing for the first time, now I want to go and get the album that's off. You know what I mean? So that's what's cool about doing this show we're doing, because I'm discovering some of this stuff for my first time myself, and I hope that when other people hear this show we're doing, hear us talking about these songs, they go and check the tunes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that song I can't remember where it peaked on the top 40, on the top 40, but I do believe it did hit the top 40 charts.
Amazing. I never heard that. Wow.
I think it did. Now I'm going to have to go back and look.
That's interesting.
But I think it was one of their bigger hits.
Wow. Where was I? I was probably too much being a Kiss fan. I don't know.
That was right around the height of Kiss's popularity, so I wouldn't doubt it.
And now, I think the most different tune on the whole list is the next one, Full Time Lover. Now, I seen that came out around 1980, so that's Foghat kind of moving on from the 70s to 80s. I think, like a lot of bands, they were trying to go for a different sound.
I think that's the song that I told you that somehow magically made it on the list, and it wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh, okay. Well,
but no, that song actually has like a not. But since we touched on it, I think that song honestly kind of reminded me a little bit of like a Sammy Hagar kind of vibe is what that song gave me, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it sounds like a band from the 70s trying to sound 80s, or it was just the dawn of a new era, and I think maybe they seen what was going on with other bands, and okay, we're going to try to do that.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was like me just clicking, and I think it's one of those. Not that I don't like the song.
I hear you. It's not. Yeah.
I think it was like one of those things where you're clicking and you're adding up the playlist, and you're like, it just kind of you've done
popped
before where something gets added that you didn't intend to. But yeah, I like the song. But like I said, I remember like that song having like a lot of like a Sammy Hagar, almost to me like Rick Springfield-ish kind of vibe, like the object.
Yeah, now you say that, yeah, I kind of definitely see the Rick Springfield influence there. And then the final track you picked, which is a real cool one too, is Slip, Tripped, Fell in Love.
Yeah, that was Foghat in the MTV era.
Yeah.
And that's probably, and I think that's probably one of the last albums that might have been in like when they were on Bearsville. It was just, that was the release off of their, I think the album was called In the Mood for Something Rude.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I was on the shelf about whether I was going to purchase the album or not, and then I saw the cover, and I'm like, yeah, it's good enough for me.
Well, it's interesting you say it, because, back especially in the 70s and 80s when we were growing up, I mean, when they used to still have these things called record stores, stores where you could go buy your music, folks. I remember as a kid, like, seeing Number of a Beast in the record store for the first time, knowing nothing about Iron Maiden at the time, but seeing the album cover thinking, man, what the hell is that? That is so cool. I have to have it.
Yeah, I just remember seeing In the Mood for Something Rude with the busty lady on the cover, and I said, I need to have that.
Yeah.
But it ended up being an album that I liked, and that was their release off the album, and I dug the tune. It has that it has a good vibe to it, has that boogie vibe to it that I think that they were missing for a little bit, and it's just a song that's always stuck with me.
And now this is like stuff from the classic era of Foghat that we've been discussing pretty much. But what do you think about the fact that not only has Foghat carried on with new members, but from time to time they continue to put out new music? Like when I interviewed Charlie a couple weeks back, he was telling me that they're currently working towards a new studio album that they hope to release next year. Now, again, talking about Foghat, I mean, I don't think there's a huge list of Foghat tunes you could come up like from stuff they did with Charlie, but at the same time, I have a huge amount of respect for the band, not only carrying on, but continue to create new music, because Foghat's one of those bands, they could kind of just live on their legacy, but I respect the fact that they don't.
I like the fact that they don't, and I've listened to some of the newer stuff they've done, like Last Train Home.
Yeah.
And it's cool, I think, just for me, and unfortunately, and I kind of, it bothers me as an artist when I see people doing this, but for me, it's like I'm guilty of just going back to the stuff that I grew up with and just loving it. But I love and respect the fact that they're able to still put out quality music, with, and it has new members, but again, I don't have an issue with that, because to me, like you said, things change, people
die, unfortunately, yeah.
And it's like they still have the creative fire. They still want to be able to put out new music, and they want to be able to do that. And I applaud them for that, because you do have bands that honestly, when you go to see them, you're like, dude, you haven't put anything out since 1990. You're touring off the same stuff. You've got nothing new or interesting to show me. And it's almost like, with the exception of one or two songs that are they are their signatures, you feel like you can get up at any time during their set and go get a beer, because there's nothing that's going to be new that grabs.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That's so true. But that's why I really encourage people to check out the new Foghat live album. It's called 8 Days a Week Live, and you get a nice little CD DVD combo. And I got mine off of Amazon or you get it through the band's official website. But like if you just are a casual observer and you want to know, what's this band Foghat they've been talking about all about, that's a pretty fair representation. I mean, if you want to check out some new music they've done with the current lineup, the last official release they did was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, called Under Influence. That's a pretty good representation of what they're doing now, and it's a pretty rocking thing. And that's the thing. They're not trying to sound like what came before. They're just doing their thing now.
They're doing their thing.
Yeah.
They're doing their thing, and that's the beauty of it.
Now, before we wrap this up today, Mike, I had a few more questions for you. Now, of course, as we mentioned at the top of this, you're from a band, Steel City, and I want to give people a little background on your friendship with me. In that initially I interviewed you, I think it was last year, about your band Steel City, and
right.
and then I kind of discovered you're a mutual Kiss fan like me, and I have this other interview series I do called On the Record, where we talk to musicians about not just their favorite bands but favorite albums, and I say, hey Mike, what Kiss album would you like to talk about? And you had a unique response, because usually typically I'll ask somebody and they'll tell me, oh, I want to talk to you about, Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. But you did something unique, and you told me, well, how about this, Jason? I don't want to talk just about one Kiss album. Let's talk about 3. Let's talk about, I think it was Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, and Revenge. And we did that all in one show. And I thought, wow, this guy's really kind of, he's on a different path, but it's good. It's different in a good way. And it was one of the best interviews I ever did. And then I've been wanting to interview you again. That's how we got the kind of idea, you and me talking back and forth to do this show today. And we're going to try to do it once a month or so. And because again, you were sharing with me when I was saying, hey Mike, what's another album you'd like to talk about? And you said, oh well, I'm a fan of you gave me like a list, like Warrant, Winger, and all these other bands. I thought, oh, that'd be kind of interesting to kind of talk about, and that's kind of what popped in my head. Hey, why don't we do like a playlist thing? And so that's how we kind of that's how we got to this point where we are now. But again, before we wrap it up, you want to give us an update on what's going on with your band Steel City? You guys working on any new music? You got any other projects you're involved with?
Well, thank you for asking. And again, thank you for doing this. And thank you for having me on.
Of course.
I really appreciate the time. It's always fun to talk music. Right now, Steel City, we had the dubious misfortune of releasing our album Mach 2 pretty much almost to the day that COVID hit. So It made it really kind of challenging to, I guess, promote the album and support the album live. So what we've been doing for the majority of this year is we've been trying to get out and play some select dates and some important shows to get in front of as many people as possible to, I guess, provide awareness for Steel City, but and to promote Mach 2. It's kind of tough for us because we're 5 guys who live in 5 different states, so it's the circus has a lot of moving parts, and it takes a lot to put them together. But I think we're very fortunate that we've got some, excellent management with Bradley Entertainment, and Brad's also a killer promoter, and we've been able to play a few of Brad's shows, and we've been able to step into, Rock and Pod in Nashville, and then have a show the subsequent Sunday night following the convention. We're able to play some really good shows to kind of shine a light on what we're doing. The next album, for the most part, I would, I don't want to come off as arrogant or anything like that, because it's definitely not the place that it's coming from.
Yeah.
But I'm the main songwriter for the band, and then of course everybody else, of course, provides, their contributions to the band and makes the material their own. For the most part, the album, I have, probably like 50 songs right now that I could choose from.
Oh, wow.
To put the next album together. And what we're going to end up doing is probably in the early part of next year, we'll probably pare those down to songs that, really more or less fit the Steel City mold. And we'll go through them with the guys and see which ones the guys like the most. And we'll narrow it down probably to somewhere around, 15 songs. And then from there, we'll get to 10 that we want to work on. And hopefully we'll be able to have an album out by late 2022, maybe early 2023. The key is we want to really be able to put our best foot forward and take as much time with these songs as we can to kind of take a leap forward from Mach 2. So that's what's happening with Steel City. As far as other projects, I mean, we've all got our own things going on.
Yeah.
Jason, the bass player, he is in a band with Chaz West from, I think Chaz West used to tour with Jason Bonham at one time.
Is that the Westbound?
Westbound.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, it's Westbound. Of course, Roy has his own band, The Fifth, and he's also, of course, the front man for Cold Sweat. And then Tony is in a band called Dead Risen.
Okay. Wow.
And I think he's also in Mike LaPon's Silent Assassins, I think is the name of the band. And our drummer now, Derek Pontier, is formerly of Jack Russell's Great White.
Oh, okay.
We switched drummers because BJ's got so many touring commitments with his other bands, and Derek was not only fortunately he was available. He's an outer worldly drummer, and he and I share a lot of the same drum influences, and our drummers, we have a lot of the same favorite drummers, so he really kind of fit well with the band, and his personality works well with the band too. So
interesting.
But
interesting. I was just going to say, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say it's not arrogant, because a lot of my favorite bands would have a principal songwriter, and I think it's kind of important to know who's the guy that writes all the stuff, because typically that's what makes a really great band is great songwriting. I mean, Kiss is a great example of that. I mean, if you look at any of the great Kiss tunes, for the most part, Gene and Paul wrote those tunes, for the most part. Maybe Bob Ezrin, and even Peter and Ace. But the bulk of the Kiss songs, for example, is pretty much Gene and Paul. And that's why Kiss sound it's the way it does, I think. Steel City, I mean, growing up as a kid, and you're listening to a lot of these tunes we've been talking about, I was surprised to find out it was Pete Townsend wrote all those great Who songs, not Roger Daltrey. He's kind of the voice of the Who, but they're Pete's songs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's another thing that I'm working on with the lead singer of a band called the Apocalyptic Lovers.
Okay.
They're originally from the same hometown as me, Youngstown, Ohio. And I forged a relationship with their lead singer, Rob Kane. So he and I are working on something. It's going to be an 11-song album with an unnamed Kiss song to be the sole cover.
Oh, wow, interesting.
And the working title of the band, and no, it's not the song that we're covering, is called Love in Chains.
Okay.
We were looking for, that we named it after the Kiss song, penned by Paul Stanley.
Yeah.
Of course. And it sounds really cool. It's just all guitar based. We really don't have any keyboards on this album. And it's a lot of fun because I'm working with a guy that's from my hometown. We have a lot of the same friends, and we're hoping to get it out. We were hoping to get it out by fall this year, but there's no rush to get it out. And there's no rush to put things out right away. So what we're going to do is hopefully have everything done at least by fall. Have a good, a pre-sale, and try to build up some buzz for it, and hopefully people will dig what we put out there, and they'll like Love and Chains as much as they like Steel City.
Oh, and the other thing I got to tell you, in regards to all that is, I discovered, correct me if I'm wrong, but you covered a Vinnie Vincent tune. If I'm not mistaken, it was Back on the Streets. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did that on the first album. That's actually the first song when I reached out to Brian Cole to sing. I said, do you mind covering a couple of songs? These are, songs where I cannot hit the high notes and I need to save my life. And so, Brian said, yeah. And so it was the first song he did, and he did such an amazing job on that. And another song that I had sent to him called Turnabout, that he ended up becoming the lead singer of Steel City at the time. So, it was, and it's a tribute pretty much to Vinnie and to John Norum, the two of whom are among my favorite guitarists, probably with Norum being my favorite of all time.
Oh, interesting.
Very, very close second being Ace Frehley.
Oh, interesting, because now here's a little history I know about the original. That obviously is originally a Vinnie tune. He wrote the song,
right.
and if you go back to 1986 off the debut Vinnie Vincent Invasion, that's where you can hear that track. And actually, the track Vinnie does is he does a duet with singer Robert Fleischman on that album. And I know back in 1985 when Ace was doing a club tour, if you go back, you can find some demos where he did a version of that same Vinnie tune.
Oh, wow.
So the song has a little bit of a history, and I never knew why Vinnie never sang his own stuff, because I've heard a lot of his unreleased demos with him singing, and he had a pretty decent singing voice, but I guess he just wanted to do the guitar thing.
Well, it could be that, and it could be, sometimes, depending on what you're playing, not everybody is as gifted as someone like Michael Sweet or Dave Menichetti, where you could pretty much sing and play.
Yeah.
Where it seems like they could sing and play just about anything.
Yeah.
Singing and playing at the same time is definitely an art.
I've heard that,
it's definitely something that you can probably improve at, but you kind of have to have a little bit of a base at that at the outset. Maybe Vinny didn't have that. Maybe he couldn't sing and play at the same time.
So
I don't know. I'm speculation.
Is that kind of like maybe why you're not the lead singer of your own band? Because, like you said, okay.
No, the reason why I'm not the lead singer of my own band is because I'm not good enough to be the lead singer of my own band.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
I'm a good background singer.
That's right. Okay, you're one of those guys. You know what you can do and what you can't do, and you're like, I'll stick with what I can do.
The best example I can give is we were thinking about making the Love and Chains thing, something where I sang some songs, Rob sang some songs, and what it ended up being is we would send my vocals and Rob's to our producer Ty Sims, and every song would come back with Rob's vocals on it. I asked Ty, I said, is there a problem with my vocals? He said, no, your vocals are fine. His are just better. You just have to you have to be accepting of that, and it's not about putting my vocals on a song it's about putting your best foot forward. If there's ever, like, for instance, if there's a song where I'm like, there's something I really want in, like, this guitar solo, and I don't think I can swing it, I might reach out to a friend like Billy DiNapoli from Wild America or Dwayne Morano of Morano and say, hey man, would you like to do a dual solo on the song, and I'd like you to take this part, because it's not about your ego, it's about the song.
Oh, Dwayne Morano, I had a chance to interview him too, like a couple of years ago. Super cool guy, super talented guy, and I'm like, how is it that this guy's not more known? How is it that people are just discovering him?
Well, again, and that has a lot to do with life. Because Dwayne really wasn't releasing music all of these years, and I think he was actually focused on his professional life.
There you go. Yeah.
And in regard to that, so he had all these songs, much like me, probably locked away in a cabinet somewhere. Pulled them out one day and said, I'm going to start, putting my music out there, and that's the reason why. So who knows, man? Maybe when I kick the bucket, there'll be somebody saying that Mike Flores was their inspiration for becoming a good songwriter. I don't know. It'd be kind of cool if that happened.
Yeah. And on that note, Mike, I gotta say, you've got quite an internet kind of following, and I think you're a big part of that, because like who's going to promote your stuff better than you, if you know what I mean? And I always see you posting stuff, and I always see you promoting the hell out of what you do, which you should be. But I mean, you're person, you come across as a nice guy, and I see how many people follow you, and I think that's a big part of it.
Well, nobody likes an asshole.
Oh, that's true. In fact, funny you mention that, because this kind of talking about things that happen kind of coincidentally. This was totally unplanned, as far as us doing this today. And as you know, I interviewed Carmine a piece earlier, and I'm bringing this up because, in fact, I'd been in contact with this publicist, and I did not really confirm the interview till the day before I was to do it, and which is kind of cool. And then you happened to mention to me that, hey, you and your friends attended this event, Rockin' Pod, and you had a chance to meet Carmine and his buddies. Now, you shared the fact with me that you were wearing a Vinnie Vincent T-shirt, and he commented on it. And so I asked him about it during the interview, and he definitely remembered. He goes, "Oh, that guy, yeah." He goes, "I asked him, what the hell are you wearing a Vinnie shirt here for?" But
it was the last day of the convention. My band had just played a show the night before, and my keyboard player Tony Stahl had the good fortune of actually sitting down and having breakfast with both Carmine and Vinny. And when I walked over to say hello to Tony, he saw the Vinnie Vincent shirt, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Vinnie Vincent! He's really, dude? Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I get it. I understand. You get Vinny, you get a little ribbon when you wear Vinnie Vincent gear sometimes." Yeah. But he was good. He was a good sport about it. We had a good chuckle.
Yeah. He kind of chuckled about it today when I brought it up, and he said, "Oh, that guy. Yeah, I remember him." But see, the thing he was telling me, it's really kind of sad because Vinnie Vincent himself, he was out of the music, he's out of the spotlight for like 25 years, and then around 2018 he has a chance to come back, and it looked like he was going to come back maybe this time in a big way, but every time he gets a chance or something, he blows it. And so when I was talking
to himself in the foot,
I was talking to Carmine today. He says, yeah, he goes, people put me in touch with Vinny. He goes, I of course worked with him before. We did Carmine and the Rockers before he was ever in Kiss. He goes, the Kiss guys knew I worked with him. They asked me what I thought. I told them, oh, super talented guy, but he's got issues. And Paul Stanley told him later, yeah, you were right, Carmine. But in any event, he was telling me, he goes, they were going to do this gig with Vinny, and when I say they, Carmine and the singer Jim Crean, that's played on Carmine's A Peace album, and then he says needed a bass player, so Carmine recommended Tony Franklin. I even told Carmine, man, what a killer band. If I was Vinnie Vincent, I've been away from the music business for 25 years, and somebody puts together a band like that, man, I'm going to see this as my big chance to come back in a big way. He says, Carmine says, yeah, I knew Vinny. I didn't hold any grudges against him. We had issues in the past, but he says, I was going to write tunes with him. We were going to do we had all kinds of plans, but he just blew it.
Well, and the one thing I can say that was really cool was at Rock and Pod, and I before we wrap this up, I just want to share this. Carmine was going to play Valley of the Kings at the Rare Hair event.
Okay.
And he ended up not. There was another drummer that stepped in for him. But how cool would it have been to see Carmine Apiece on stage with Roy Cathy? Because Roy sang Valley of the Kings, and I have to tell you right now, that was the talk of the night, and probably the Rock and Pod weekend was just how well Roy actually sang and how he just killed it. It would have been amazing to see Carmine and Roy on the same stage together. I would have.
Oh wow! And Carmine, if you're a Carmine fan, he's been involved with all kinds of projects, everything from Vanilla Fudge, King Cobra, Blue Murder, Ozzy, and so he was sharing with me that Vanilla Fudge, they have a new single coming out. I think you might enjoy the fun of this. It's a cover of the Supremes' "Stop in the Name of Love," and it's going to be Vanilla Fudge's last single they put out with their late bass player Tim Bogart, who recently passed away.
Oh wow!
And so just Carmine's always been known for doing things like this, kind of that's kind of a tune you wouldn't expect him to kind of cover, but I think it's going to be a fun thing for anybody that's a fan of what he does. And the last thing I want to discuss, Mike, before we finally do wrap it up, is the first time I interviewed you, I think when you guys were getting ready to do this show with the Monsters of Rock cruise, and I thought it was a great way to kind of launch that album. So tell people a little bit about that, because I thought, when they're starting to do all these things with Monsters of Cruise and stream all these things, but then once again, Facebook kind of wants to monetize everything and gets in the way. But talk about that, because I thought it was a cool event for you guys.
Well, the first thing I have to say in regard to that is thank you to Larry Moran and all of the staff at Monsters of Rock Cruise for even considering us to do that. We're, as they said, right at the outset of our video, welcome some new blood to the Monsters of Rock Cruise Steel City. They didn't really know us. And they took a chance on us. And from what I'm to understand, I really haven't had any correspondence with Larry since then, but our bass player does speak with him regularly, I guess. They really liked us. It was a great opportunity to get in front of a crowd that is pretty much our bread and butter, which is the 80s hard rock fans. And hopefully they enjoyed what they saw. And it was, for all intents and purposes, a live show. Because we got out there and we're singing, and here I am halfway through the set, and my mic dies. We just kept going. So it's like, for people who think it's anything but, there's the truth of it all.
Well, what a rock and roll! What a rock and roll thing to do. I mean, you hear about bands going in the studio and fixing like a live album up that they're going to release or something, but it is what it is, and like you said, it's warts and all. And I thought it was a great way to kind of get people to find out about the band, because to be honest, Mike, I never heard of you guys until that event. And then I go online and I look up Steel City. That's where I discovered the Vinnie Vincent cover. And I dig that too, because like Vinnie Vincent's one of those guys that people may laugh at you. Oh, you're a Vinnie Vincent fan, but the thing is, you stay true to the music you dig. And Vinnie Vincent's one thing. I mean, I do think he kind of rips his fans off in a way. Like when I see he's selling Vinnie Vincent CDs that came out over 25 years ago for $150 through his website because it's got his autograph. I don't know. I'm not going to buy it, so I don't know. But that's
you see, that's the thing, and and I like I said, I'm a huge Vinnie Vincent fan as far as inspirationally, he's way up there in my guitar player list. He's an excellent songwriter. The only thing that really has ever been somewhat of a letdown for me is the things where it's like you go on his website to buy a Vinnie Vincent T-shirt, and it's going to cost you like $50 or $60 to get the thing shipped to you. It's like it's a T-shirt, And what I've always and I'm not. He's a musician. To some degree, he's a businessman, and he's got the right.
Definitely
to charge whatever he pleases.
Definitely, yeah.
But to me, I've always been of the mindset that if you probably give somebody something of quality, and you give it to them at a fair price, it's like the old saying, you're going to catch more bees with honey.
With
vinegar. And I think that's where if Vinny just kind of changed his mindset there. And again, I don't know the guy.
Of course, a lot of people don't. Yeah.
But I think if he did that, I think the reception that he received, not only from his fans but from his detractors as well, might shift. And because his fans, people like me, dude, we love him. I want to see the guy succeed because to me, he's, like I said, he's a killer. He's a great influence. Some of that other stuff, and maybe I shouldn't be speaking to it, but I don't want to.
I hear you.
But I just wish that some of that stuff would be a little different.
I mean, it's a shame because he really, even not just as a guitar player, but as a songwriter, I didn't understand, when things fell apart with Kiss and even his solo career, he should have gone off to write tunes for other people at least. I mean, because I think he's got that talent. I think
he did.
It's part of a reason, even when they worked with him again on Revenge, I think that they were even willing to kind of consider the idea of working with him. Oh, well, we wrote some pretty good tunes, And even if you look what they wrote on Revenge, I mean, great songs.
Oh, great. That's why Revenge is my favorite Kiss album of all time. I don't even think that, like I said, Revenge, Creatures, look it up. To me, those are all better than Destroyer. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I know that most people won't feel that way, but to me...
I will say this, though. Revenge, to me, I think what was so great about it is a lot of what you said, but to me, that sounded like maybe Destroyer Part 2. That just had a classic Kiss 70s sound, and I think a large part of that was when Gene and Paul started not only writing together again, but that's the first album they'd done in years where they would, God Gave Rock and Roll is a perfect example where they're each singing on the song and trading lead vocals,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I just want to say that was a great way to kind of launch the band. I think those type of events, Steel City would be perfect for, even maybe even at a Kiss convention or something, if you're able to get on one of those shows.
Well, you never know what the future holds, man. And, if I'm ever fortunate enough to where Gene or Paul actually hears our music, who knows? Maybe.
I'm talking about even you have these Kiss fans put on Kiss conventions that have nothing to do with Kiss. Even guys like John Corabi, they've never been in Kiss, but they kind of got a Kiss connection because he used to play with Bruce Kulick in a band. So anytime like John Corabi puts out an album, Kiss fans will kind of check it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of amazing. James Lominzo, of course, who's in Megadeth. He's played with everybody from White Lion to Ace Frehley. People may not even be aware of that, but for a brief time, he was in Ace's solo band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. White Lion opened for Ace on his Frehley's Comet tour.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we're going to finally wrap this up. I really enjoyed talking to you. I think you're the perfect guy to do this with. So I want you to think about ideas for the next show, which will probably be about a month from now. I got some ideas. I'll email you about them, and if you got any, email them to me, and we'll come up with something. A couple ideas already popped in my head, but I'll pass that by you later. Thank you so much for doing this.
No, I appreciate the time, and thank you so much.
Okay, take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
See you.